Greetings to the SERI community. Hope all are safe in this COVID crisis. This is Nitin Ramrakhiani from TCS Research, and I am going to present our work on extraction of message sequence charts from software use case descriptions. This work is already published at the NAACL conference in 2019 and its industry track. As we know, software use cases are actually natural language descriptions of the core functional requirements of a system. And the goals of use case analysis are many. They comprise of checking the correctness of use cases, their completeness, or detection of ambiguities in use cases. Message sequence charts are actually an expressive, rigorous, and yet intuitive visual representation of the use cases. So an MSC actually represents various actors and their interactions which are happening in the use case. So each interaction may comprise of a sender actor, the one that is initiating the interaction, a message label that describes the interaction, and a set of receivers which are the actors which experience that interaction. In this work, we propose a linguistic knowledge-based approach to extract MSCs from use cases. So to show you how an MSC looks like, we consider this particular use case. You can pause the video and read the use case. It is about an automated guided vehicle and its use case of particularly moving to a station and then picking up a part. So the MSC that should come out from this use case is something like this, where at the top, if you see, there are these actors A1, A2, which are actually the AGV system, the motor, the supervisory system, the arrival sensor, or the vehicle, or the robot arm. And we can see that there are these timelines of these actors, which are shown by these vertical lines here below each actor. And if we see these interactions, they are these arrows that go from, suppose, say the actor A3, which is the supervisory system, which sends a message to A1, which is the AGV system. There are various other constructs that are also highlighted in an MSC, which are this particular alt box. Now here an alt box shows us the various paths that are possible in, or the alternate paths that are possible in a use case. Messages that are shown in this kind of a box here are actually known as conditions. So it is like the if statement and the condition that we write is all denoted in this kind of a box. Also, if you see, this is a timer. So if a certain activity has to be completed in a certain specified time, then the timer can be started here on a particular actor's timeline and can stop here. So this MSC is a rich representation, as you see, to visualize the interactions among the actors in a use case. Now moving further, we go to how we define actors in use cases. So we say that they are basically persons or human users that that interact with a system, and organizations if they are mentioned anywhere in the use case. Then the actual systems such as supervisory system or library system, they are also actors. We also say that persistent components of systems such as servers, databases, or customer accounts are also actors. Similarly, persistent processes in the system are also actors such as schedulers or daemons. Then system components such as buttons, menus, or the GUI elements as we know them are also actors. But an interesting set of entities which is excluded from this definition is as follows. They are the attributes of the above entities, such as usernames or passwords for say customer accounts. They are not considered as actors, the usernames and passwords. Similarly, these transient entities and business processes are also not considered as actors. So such as requests, responses, or registration process. So these are not considered as actors. So this is the kind of definition that we have in our work. Now to tell you how to extract these actors from a given use case. Okay. Before I get into the technique, I'll just tell you a brief note on the WordNet. So if many of you might be aware about the WordNet. So if in the WordNet I search a word like system, I get its various senses in spoken English. Now if I consider this particular first sense of the word system, here if we see this hypername hierarchy, so it tells us that a system is nothing but it's an instrumentation. An instrumentation is actually an artifact, which is further a physical object and then basically an entity. So this thing is also known as the hypername hierarchy. So we use this senses from WordNet and this hypername hierarchy to devise our technique for actor identification. So here we say that every noun phrase that occurs in the use case is actually a candidate actor. Now a candidate actor becomes a valid actor if I see its head word which has the WordNet senses in its hypername hierarchy as follows. So if I take a noun and I search it on the WordNet and I check its hypername hierarchy, and if I get these particular senses like the sense 1 of physical object, or sense 4 and sense 12 of thing, or sense 1 of causal agent, so if I get these senses in the hypername hierarchy of that term, then I would say that yes, that's an actor. Okay, so if you see this example, so this is a small snippet of the previous use case that I showed. So these particular noun phrases which are marked in blue are actually detected as actors by our technique. So you see there is the supervisory system, the AGV system, a factory station, a part, the vehicle, the motor, and so on. Now moving on to the message extraction. So the message here is basically the tuple that consists of the sender, the message label, and the receiver. We try to do this using a relation extraction tool such as Stanford OpenAI. Now this is also known as open information extraction. We run this tool on the use case statements to get relation tuples. So you can see here, so for the sentence, the supervisory system sends a message to the AGV system. We get a tuple like this. So there is a left argument which is the supervisory system, the relation which is sends, and there are two right arguments, a message and the AGV system. Similarly, for this sentence, CF system adds the train to its database. Now here the left argument is the CF system, the relation is adds, and there are again two right arguments, the train and to its database. So here as you can see, this adds is basically a verb which forms the relation, and the left and the right arguments are basically the noun phrases that are associated to that verb. To tell you more about the message extraction technique, what we do is we run that relation extraction tool, the Stanford OpenAI, on each statement in a use case, and for each tuple that we obtain, we do this 4-step process. So we say that if the left argument is a valid actor according to our definition and gets extracted by our technique, then it is marked as the sender of that particular tuple, and we go forward. If the left argument is not a valid actor, we simply ignore the tuple. In the second step, the relation phrase, okay, the verb that has been identified as the relation phrase will become the message label of my message on the MSC. And similarly for now we consider the right arguments. So now here for each right argument we do two checks. The first check is if the right argument is a valid actor, we simply add it to the set of receivers. Otherwise, we check whether this right argument can simply be appended to the message label. Okay, and this we do using a rule based system using dependency parsing of these sentences. So if we find that the dependency parent of one of my right arguments is a verb, is my message label, then I append that to my message label. Now so if I identify the sender S and the message label M and a set of receivers R, then these messages are created in the form of this tuple S, M, Ri. If you see this sentence, the same sentence that I was discussing earlier, the supervisory system sends a message to the AGV system. So we get this relation tuple from the OpenAI system that I told. Now here if we see the left argument, the supervisory system is a valid actor, and hence the message starts with this being the sender. The relation that is sends comes here as a part of the message label. Now there are two right arguments, a message and to the AGV system. Now here the AGV system is surely a receiver, is surely an actor, and hence it gets added to the list of receivers. However, this thing, a message, is actually not a valid actor. And we also check through dependency parsing that the dependency parent of this word message is this verb sends, and hence we append this right argument to the verb here to make a more meaningful message label, which is sends a message to. The supervisory system sends a message to the AGV system, hence becomes the complete message. Similarly, for another example, if we see here, the CF system adds the train to its database. We again have the left argument as CF system, the relation as adds, and two right arguments, the train and its database. Now in this case, both the right arguments are valid actors, and hence two messages get created. The CF system adds the train and the CF system adds to its database. If any one of you are already aware of the message sequence chart formalism, then you might be knowing that these two messages are actually a part of a co-region. There are other aspects of identifying conditions, timers and alt boxes, which we have described in detail in the paper, which I am not covering in this presentation in the interest of time. So now moving on to the experimentation and evaluation, we consider 4 use cases obtained from publicly available software requirement specifications of real life software systems as a part of our data set. And we also consider one more use case from an internal project dealing with automatic train control systems. So here if we see, we evaluate. How do we evaluate our extractions? So what we do is we have the gold annotations of these 5 use cases that we have in our data set, which are created by our annotators, wherein they identify the actors, the gold actors, wherein they identify the message labels, and wherein they identify the complete message of sender, message label and receiver. So we also evaluate at these levels. We check that if our system is predicting an actor, we call it a true positive if its complete noun phrase is exactly similar to the one that is marked by the annotator as a gold actor. And similarly, we check for the message label being a true positive if the main verb of the label matches the main verb of the gold message. And then we choose and we also evaluate on these other combinations, that is sender plus message label, then message label plus receiver, and the complete message of complete message, which involves the sender, the message label and the receiver. We compare our work with a baseline which was proposed by Koff in requirements engineering in long back in 2007. And there he tried to use computational linguistics to do the very same task of extracting MSCs from software use cases. Now as you can see in this table, in each of these evaluation levels, be it actors or message label or the complete message, we comfortably perform better than the baseline which is proposed by Koff, though it's an old baseline, but that was one that is existing, so we tried to compare it with that. We carried out a little bit of analysis. So if you happen to read Koff's approach, actually it makes very naive assumptions about the structure of the sentence, and it ignores a lot of syntactic and semantic information that flows among the words. But as you saw, our approach harnesses these various linguistic aspects like the dependency parsing of each statement, or the WordNet hypernyms, or this OpenEye kind of relation extraction to generate the MSCs. And we also stumbled upon certain error cases, which I'm sure you will be interested to know. So if you see this particular statement, the system stores order confirmation and order details. Now here, if I do the part of speech tagging of this particular sentence, my system should actually be a noun, my stores should be a verb, the order confirmation a noun phrase, my and a conjunction, and the order details as another noun. But here the part of speech tagger in the Stanford OpenEye toolkit that incorrectly marks the stores as a noun instead of a verb, and hence no OpenEye tuples are actually generated, and no message gets generated from this sentence. So that's a big error case. This would require probably a lot of domain knowledge to put in that stores is actually a verb and not a noun. Because generally on the training data on which these OpenEye systems are trained, there it might have seen stores occurring more as a noun than a verb. So that may be the reason behind this error. Bringing you to another error, the statement is system appends cookie with flag for completed checkout process. Now here we do not actually want the flag to be as an actor, because that is a kind of a bit that is getting set inside the cookie. So you can say very well it's a transient kind of entity, and hence it should not be an actor. But our approach relies on that wordnet hypernym hierarchy, where flag is actually coming as a physical object, and hence it gets marked as an actor. So that is one more error case which I pointed out. Right, so I'll also discuss about a real life use case. So the real life use case that I was talking about earlier in the data set section. So this is about about a system wherein trains are running in an automated fashion in a mine, and this use case is regarding the addition of a new locomotive to the particular system. So you can pause the video here too and read about more of the use case. The MSE that gets generated from our system is shown on this slide. So if you see here, the various actors that are identified are the CF system, the OBC system in the train, its database, the crusher operator, the train, the RCS system, and so on. And various such messages are identified. Now, you will be interested to know that why I have marked certain messages in red. So this is the kind of application that we were planning to look at. So if you see here, the first message, which is A5, that is the crusher operator, provides a train on rail command. But there is really no receiver to that, and hence a dummy receiver environment is added here. But we would always like to present this to the requirement analyst, indicating a gap in this use case statement, which says that where should this train on rail command actually reach. Similarly, if you see this particular condition of CM initialization, and then once the train A6 is in CM initialization state, the OBC system in the train starts initialization. However, there is a small miss here, there is a small gap which can be pointed out, is that once the train state changes to CM automatic, then the A7, that is the RCS system, sends some command for validation. However, that may not be true if the train state never changed to CM automatic. So that alternate path should always be defined in the use case, but we didn't find that in the use case, and hence this is an important gap to be shown to the requirement analyst. To end my presentation, I would like to discuss some thoughts. So as you can see, this proposed approach for identifying these MSCs or extracting MSCs from use cases is primarily unsupervised because of the lack of training data. We don't have training data of the form which in which it is marked that this is the sender, this is the label, and this is the receiver. But given such training data, can supervised techniques inspired from machine learning or deep learning push the performance further? Another interesting thought is about use cases in the agile framework. Now they are basically use stories, or I should say they are stories, user stories. I beg your pardon, this is an error here. Yeah. So they are very crisp and very short definitions of the requirements. So the question is that can such techniques be useful for requirements analysis in such contexts? Another thought is on the definition of actors. Now the way we have defined actors may be improved if there would be some ontologies that would talk of software engineering entities. So like systems, and then their components, their GUI, and their processes, and various other things. So given such ontologies, the definition of actors can I'm pretty sure it could be improved a lot. So I would like to keep the forum open for questions. Thank you very much.